I swear to God, if they debut another generation before I get to talking about myth lore, I will combust. Oh hi, it's me, Kurb, and welcome back to the little series I like to call Why I Ended Up in a Mental Asylum, also known as Hololive English Lore. In this episode we tackle the newest gen, Advent. Will we uncover more secrets of this world's canon? Will there be any correlation between the groups? If those questions excite you, the connection this group has with the ancient ones may have confirmed one of my ongoing theories. So let's jump right into it. Let's start easy with our precious rock candy Bijou. Her story, while interesting, is the one that I consider to be the least lore heavy. It goes like this. Bijou is known as the jewel of emotions, as she was created by the crystallization of human sentiment. Over the years, the vast quantity of emotions like filth and beauty has pressured her into shining like crazy. That same shine was wanted by the greedy people who fought to own her, leading her to be imprisoned in secrecy far from human reach. One particular characteristic is that when she encounters people with good emotions, her radiance shines even brighter. That's the official lore by Hololive, but may I add that since she inspires greed to whoever sees her, it's quite reminiscent to the story in Norse mythology of the priceless ring of advent-ure. That, like Bijou, it caused greed to whoever saw it as it helped find sources of gold, which inspired the One Ring of Tolkien's stories. First member, and I'm already researching Scandinavian mythology. Hololive, am I right? Moving forward are Fua and Moko, the twin demon dog sisters. They do have quite the interesting lore and parallels to mythology, just like Bijou, but with a lot more world building. To sum up, Fua is the caring older sister who takes care of both Moko and their mentor/pet Beidou, which we will get to later. Meanwhile, Moko is the rambunctious sibling who in their time at the cell watched anime and played video games, sometimes even roping Fua and Beidou. But you may ask, why were they imprisoned? Well, they were, and I quote, a pain in the butt. So as punishment they sent them to the cell. Quite the harsh punishment, honestly. There may be more explanation to why they were imprisoned, but honestly that's such a classic Hololive lore thing and I need simplicity every now and then. And yes, let's not forget, they are demon dogs. They live in a place called the Northwest Passage located within the Makai or demon world. And while they say they are demon guard dogs, they are still in training. Their job is mostly protecting the gate to the demon world, but only a few are selected. And the Makai that was briefly mentioned is from Buddhist origins, where it's defined as a place for supernatural beings and nothing about evil beings there, which is what media portrays it as. Which means that if a Makai exists, that implies the existence of a Reikai, which is the spirit world or afterlife where ghosts and spirits reside. That answers my question of the difference between the Makai and the underworld. The Makai is for supernatural beings like demons, and the underworld, which is hell, is the Reikai of this universe, where let's say a death's apprentice would bring a fresh disease. And also they are inspired by Norse mythology, more specifically Gyr and Frigg, Odin's guard dogs. They even poke fun at their names as they are the greedy one and the avaricious one, with their own names being the fluffy one and the fuzzy one respectively. And also brings comparisons with Greek mythology that, with Beidou, they're compared to a Cerberus, the three-headed demon dog that guards the gates of hell. Beidou himself is quite important as he is Fua and Moko's mentor, but they claim him to be their pet. Okay, so now we get to the confusing lore. Nerissa is by far the one that surprised me a lot with her lore. Here's why. She's known as the demon of sound, and with her deep love of song, that love turns into a dark power that when unleashed, normally by her singing, it can drive the world mad. So the ones who intervened were, you guessed it, the gods. It is said that the gods imprisoned her as they were afraid of her boys, and in her time in the cell that just appropriately had twin demonic guard dogs and sparkling gems, she came across otaku culture. Also forgot to mention that the gods broke one of her horns to limit her power and headed away somewhere. Where? I don't know. So, what's the big deal? Them. These motherfuckers are the big deal. The gods are back with a vengeance, and now we know that they were active rather than just disappeared. It may seem that they appear when their creation is at risk and intervene likewise, and probably write their forbidden knowledge, which could include the location to Rissa's horn. But there's one timeline error. It was revealed in a stream that Rissa was locked up for 9,000 years.
Tell you how long I was locked away. I was locked away in the cell for 9,000 years.
Which would automatically make her part of the first 1,000 years of civilization like 7,000 BCE. Or so you would think. The first civilizations were created in 3000 BCE. And also wouldn't explain Bijou's age. In her debut, she said her age started with a 1, and since Nerissa said that Bijou was older, we know Bijou has to be at least 10,000 years old. While her lore is straightforward and not as complicated as I made it out to be, there's also some errors in there. Or maybe the talent just says some shit and I'm just taking this way too seriously. But for now, remember the existence of the horn and everything will click when we get to... final member of Advent and the one who connects it all. Shiori, known as the Archiver, turns her favorite stories and memories into bookmarks that she saves somewhere. But by misfortune, she stumbled upon forbidden knowledge. Sound familiar? And for that, she was imprisoned in the cell with the rest of Advent. But as this was but another story, she planned and executed a prison break. As you would. Before imprisonment, she was gifted a bookmark by what she calls a cherished soul. She didn't understand until she started to see beyond it. What did she see exactly? Well, she says it as clear as day.
Knowledge out of sync with time, carefully woven archives of realities unbeknownst to humanity. The creation and destruction of worlds, visions of universes that expanded and receded back to their origin points.
And why is this important to connect Advent? Well, we all know where forbidden knowledge is stored, right? The ancient ones are back at it again, or may I say, Godkind. That's right, the gift bestowed to Shiori by her friend could be a part of the forbidden knowledge of the gods put into Ao. I mean, if I was a god and I saw mere human gain knowledge of the universe creation, I would also imprison her somewhere. And this may confirm my ongoing theory about the ancient ones being the written manifestation of the gods' knowledge of the creation of literally everything. Why am I confident about Shiori obtaining Ao's forbidden knowledge being the same as the gods? While this just may be a little gag, remember Nerissa's horn? The one sealed away by the gods, where the location is unknown? Yeah, Shiori knows where it is. How? Because she has the answers right within a bookmark. And also, the cell they are imprisoned in? What if I told you this cell was, and probably is, where monsters from the gods' age were sealed, and that due to the impact of myths, councils, and supernatural beings, their bondage was broken and promised rebellion and glory to the new land? First take, holy shit. If you don't believe me, take a look at this page of a book written in Anglo-Saxon runes present in the Wanted PV. I swear to god, this is the first time in a while of writing theories that I had such gasp moments. You don't understand the impact of having this much lore means to me. The story runs us back to ancient ages where the gods were still active and monsters battled their creations. With the gods' victory, they sealed these monsters in a new land that could be called an empty prison. But due to the impact of myths, councils, and supernatural beings, what held them back before was now broken and pledged for rebellion and glory to the new land they called the Cell. Centuries later, as more creatures were imprisoned, some for safety, others for their danger to the world, and two because they're a pain in the ass. What the gods fear most came true, a mere mortal gaining forbidden knowledge. To prevent it from leaking to the rest, they imprisoned her but couldn't find where she stored it. In between those times, Shiori Novella had planned a prison break with 4 other girls she met there. She'd used Fua and Moko as guards' dog traits and made them bark at the guards as a distraction. Meanwhile, Koseki Bijou's ability to fly and Nerissa Ravencroft's staff were used to immobilize more of them. As they entered Shiori's confinement, they blasted even more security using Bijou as a weapon. Yes, I'm not kidding. And step outside for the first time in centuries for some of them. They took a nearby car and drove as far away from the cell as possible, pledging their rebellion. And possibly crash their car into Hololive HQ. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this was just a theory.